I was born in Anadarko, Oklahoma, on August the 18th, 1938, which, as you know, 3 years before the war. My parents were school teachers. My grandparents on my mother's side, maternal grandparents, came out of Texas, South Texas. My grandfather was in the Galveston flood of 1900. They found him after the flood was over out in the plowed rows of the field. And he had in his hand a little metal box with the change that he had collected. And my grandmother came from Nocona, Texas. And they headed north about 2 years after a state declaration in Oklahoma. I think it was 1907. So they ended up in Anadarko, Oklahoma. My paternal grandfather, their family came out of Kentucky through West Texas and finally ended up in through East Texas, and finally ended up in western Oklahoma around the town of Raiden or Stillwater, Dempsey. And that's where they were. My grandfather was considerably older than my paternal grandmother. He was a mule skinner by trade. He did a lot of other things. He did a little farming and construction work, but he did drive a team of mules carrying freight from one place to the other, which I think is kind of interesting. When they first moved there, they lived in a dugout home. He dug in the side of the mountain, or the hill, and put the canvas and what have you, and that's their first home. My mother and father met in college. My mother is Nanny Ruth Harrison, and they're from Anadarko there, and my father was Roselle Bruce Jones, and they called him RB, obviously. Both of them were teachers. They met in college at Oklahoma Baptist University and began teaching various locations around the state. Then in early parts of World War II, my father left to go to the service, and some years later, not too many years later, he called and said he wasn't coming home. So my mother ended up raising my little brother David, Marion Jones, and me for the rest of our lives. She found a job just north of Anadarko in a town called Bingor, Oklahoma. Apart from me, Bingor's claim to fame is where Johnny Bench was born and raised. So that was my school. Once I got my first bicycle at 12 years old, I would disappear, and I knew when the sun went down, at least I was that smart. And that was a small town, so I could ride all the way to town, but we didn't have any money anyway, so we'd go to the movie for 10 cents, and if we got a quarter, we could go to the movie, get a donut and a soda pop. And so that's how we spent our Saturdays usually. But we would go off to the city parks, and we'd play in the tennis courts. We played baseball in the tennis courts, of all things. Very small town, very small school district. Had 18 kids in my graduating class. That was in school there was my first taste of leadership. I was president of the 4-H club and the FFA club and the in senior class, and so I graduated in 1956, went on to Southwestern State College in Weatherford, Oklahoma, which was just a few miles north of there. It's a state school, very small, probably about 1,500 students at that point. I think my college tuition at the first time was, $130, something like that. And we were just 60 miles away from home, so we lived in a rooming house with a bunch of other people, a bunch of other classmates, actually. Mrs. Lowry's rooming house. There were 12 of us at one time, I think, and we got along on limited amount of income. I worked in the cafeteria. That's where I met my wife, and once in a while there would be food left over, and so we certainly didn't want to throw that food away, so we would rat hole it and carry it back to the rooming house. Especially vulnerable was the peanut butter and crackers, and so we got by on that and got through the lean years, as it were. And they were very good to us in college, and so I commenced my college education, not knowing what I was going to do. I met my wife there. We married between the junior and senior year, so it was time to press on. My wife comes out of western Oklahoma, and her parents were cotton farmers, and so she spent a good deal of her youth picking cotton and doing farm chores. But very, very smart and educated as a mathematician. She has a degree in math. My degree is in science. And so we were about to graduate. I didn't know what I was going to do when I got out. I knew I needed to get out of there because it's time to make a living. So I go to Millie Thomas. Millie Thomas is a sweet old lady that had been registrar there for 100 years. And I said, Millie, this is my transcript. What can I be? So she looked at it for a few minutes. She said, well, if you take a couple of education courses, you can be a school teacher. And so I said, all right. And the rest is history. We finished our degrees there at Southwestern. Again, she was a math major, science minor. I was a science major, math minor. So we were looking for work, and not too many schools that hire two people doing the same job, you know. We heard from a fellow student from the Baptist Student Center about a place down in South Texas, well, south of us, where they were hiring people, new school district, growing and looking for teachers. Her husband worked at Southwestern Baptist, he was a student at Southwestern Baptist Seminary, and they told us about this place called Hurst Euless Bedford. We had never heard of it. In fact, I didn't know anything about Fort Worth, except that's where that Montgomery Ward store there in Fort Worth, Texas, is where I bought my first ball glove by correspondence. Ordered it for $7 that I got from chores around the house and that sort of thing. So that's what I knew about Fort Worth. Charles Wages was the assistant superintendent at that time, and we had a conversation over the telephone, interview with him, and he hired us on the phone. And so our plans were set for $3,400 was our beginning salary. And we thought that was a lot of money. But I was bummed out because a week later I got an offer from Muleshoe, Texas for $3,800. So I thought, oh man, we missed out on that $200 bonus there. But anyway, so we get in our car and drive down to see where the school district was. We came down, at that point it was only 180, Highway 180 went through the area, and we drove right on through, didn't even know we had been in Hurst. The only motel we could find was the Dude Motel over on Belknap Street in Fort Worth, and it's still there as far as I know. But so we stayed overnight in the Dude Motel, came out and met Mr. Wages, and he told us about the school district and so on. Went back home, got our U-Haul trailer, and came down here. We moved here, settled in, began our work at Hurst Junior High School. I taught science, 7th grade science, and just down the hall my wife taught 7th grade math. And I taught a couple of math classes over the years. The school district had only consolidated in 1958, which means we were 2 years after consolidation. Before that it was Hurst Euless, and then they added Bedford after that. So Hurst Euless Bedford became our work environment. And since then the school district has grown remarkably. School sites, one after another. For many years through the 60s and 70s, HEB was building a school building a year, and sometimes two. So that's how rapid the growth was. In 1960, there was Bell High School that also had the junior high in it. Then there were 3 elementary schools, and then one down in Mosier Valley, which is the elementary school. The African American students who finished out of Mosier Valley went into Fort Worth to I.M. Terrell High School by bus. So there were those, that I think I'm correct in citing that number of schools. The growth came when Bell Helicopter came here and brought all of their employees. And that's why Hurst grew faster than Bedford and Euless. There was not much of infrastructure. The streets were county maintained. If there were streets at all, they were all 2-lane. If you wanted to go to to Fort Worth, you had to go down what is now Highway 10, was 183 then, and then the Belknap. And you didn't want to be on that road when Bell Helicopter let their employees, when shift changed, because you couldn't get through. But anyway, that's how you got to Fort Worth. My wife and I used to go down Harwood Drive and pick grapes off the side of the road and build jelly, or make jelly out of those. It was so primitive that there was a stock tank behind our house. We had to fight the mosquitoes for a long time till they finally drained it. Our house payments were $125, and we thought, Lord, we'll never be able to pay that. So the town was growing. The only retail in the area when we began was a Buddy's Supermarket and for food, and there was Fitch's Grocery up on Bedford Euless Road in Bedford. If you wanted anything other than food, you had to go to Fort Worth for the most part. Sometime later, Watson's moved in with a clothing store over on Pipeline Road, but otherwise you had to go to Fort Worth. You went to Stripling's or Monig's or Montgomery Ward's or Leonard's. In fact, I used to moonlight at Leonard's for a while. I had several moonlighting jobs, which I'll mention in a moment. But anyway, the thing I remember about Leonard's was there was an old African-American gentleman sitting on the sidewalk out in front of the building. He was physically handicapped, and he sold paper and ribbons and that kind of thing. And he is the character that Willie Nelson wrote a pretty paper because of his remembrance of that old gentleman. And Willie at one time was a preppy-looking guy that worked for WBAP radio. I believe that's true. And so anyway, the retail was limited. We went to Stripling's to cash in our green stamps in that time, and which was better than the ration stamps that I had to cash in during the World War II. I used to help my grandmother cut out the ration stamps. The restaurants in this area, if we wanted to go out to eat, was Jack Clark's Drive-In over on Pipeline. Then C.A. Sanford had a restaurant. C.A. has a historical figure, and I'll mention him again probably. But C.A. used to be a Hallmark salesman. Then he got in the restaurant business. He was a member of our church, and then the other one was Colonial Cafeteria. We always joked that you could tell when the teachers got paid because they had their families at the Colonial Cafeteria. And if you got your income tax return, you went to CA's. When we first moved here in '64, the next year, '65, there came a flood, and the Lorain branch of the Trinity, which goes through north-south through Hurst, backed up. And it backed up because there wasn't enough effluence down the road. One of the houses that got flooded was Don Edmonds, the city manager. And so you can bet the next time we had a bond, they cleaned out the creek, and they've not had any problems since then. They made it wider and deeper and straighter, I think. And so, police station, I can't remember the first one. I know that Joe Watson was the police chief for years until he finally retired because of illness. And he was first, in the beginning, the police department, I think. The fire department was built, they had a 2-bay fire department down on Holder Drive, and the fire department was volunteer. Charlie Driscoll, who was a significant player in the community, told me a story about the volunteer fire department got the call to come to a fire. And when they got there in the fire truck, they realized that they had unspooled the hose all the way to the site, so they had to go back and get the water hose before they could fight the fire. So anyway, they had a volunteer group. City office has moved several times. My earliest remembrance of it was probably middle to late 60s, was down on Mary Drive. That facility now is a recreation facility with swimming pools and that kind of thing there. In the early days, I played softball there with the church group across the street. I started in 1960. In 1965, I taught at Hurst Junior High School. 1965, I went to Bell High School. 1969, I had 2 years of elementary school teaching. From there, in 1971, I got the elementary principalship at West Hurst. In 1972, they put me in the new school at Lakewood Elementary in 1972. 10 years later, in 1982, I went to Central Administration. And I did a number of bureaucratic jobs. Finally, the last 10 years of that, I became the science coordinator. That is the person who teaches teachers how to teach science, as it were. And that's how I retired after 43 years in the district. I had some good experience. I got the doctorate in 1980. I was principal of the year 1 year. I was teacher of the year another year, administrator of the year, president of the CTA, Classroom Teacher Association, president of TSTA, president of the statewide Science Supervisors Association. So I had some good stick time on the job in those 43 years. As a Bell High School teacher, I enjoyed that very much. That was during the era of the Beatles, you know, when the haircuts came down over the ears, and a lot of social controversy, the long hairs versus the jocks, and we had that kind of contention. But anyway, it was interesting to me that after the long hairs occurred, then it wasn't 2 years later that the teachers also had long hair, you know, over the years. So social mores changed quickly. So anyway, I had a good time teaching at Bell High School. Those were the times also when my children were being born. I have 3 sons, and so my wife quit working so she could take care of the children. And we had to do something to keep the wolf away from the door, so I got moonlighting jobs. I worked in truck freight for Yellow Transit in Fort Worth for 6 years, in Dallas rather, for 6 years. Doing that, I also had a custodial job. I worked at Leonard's Department Store selling garden supplies and on the weekends. It kind of frustrated me that I made more working for the truck industry on union scale than I did teaching school all week. And I worked 2 days on the weekend, make more than I did teaching school. But that was the way it was. It was union money, and I was proud to take it. Even as the union guys would have called me a scab, because I had another job as well. Anyway, that worked out pretty well. We got through for a while, and one of my interesting experiences at Leonard's Department Store was me, a math minor, sold $100 worth of Bermuda grass seed to this guy, and I missed the decimal point. So he walked out of the store with $100 worth of Bermuda seed for $10. My boss didn't appreciate that very well. And I didn't like the retail work anyway, so I had to go back to the work for truck freight. So anyway, we moonlighted, and the kids came along. My wife went back to teaching, and I got a principalship, and so the moonlighting, I was able to stop working truck freight. I was at West Hurst Elementary for 1 year, and then they moved to a brand new school. They're building a new school called Lakewood Elementary in North Euless, and I was fortunate enough to be assigned a principalship there. So I viewed Lakewood Elementary from the slab up, and it was one of those open design schools that came into being during the early 70s and came under ill repute later on because, for one thing, they found that, for me, it worked great. It was one of those schools where you could see every student in the building. You walked in the door. A great scenario. We had a continuous progress curriculum, and that worked good. Continuous progress, not lockstep, not first grade, second grade, third grade. You went along with the skill level that you've been able to master. And the teachers were good about helping you, as we call them, gap students that were behind, and the students could move along if they didn't need to stay in second grade or what had been second grade. They could go on and do third grade activities and that kind of thing. So, and it was educational philosophy at that point. In education, things kind of cycle. They come and go, you know. I retired in 2003 after 43 years of work. School district has been an excellent school district. We had 3 sons, as I mentioned. Greg has a degree from Texas A&M in nuclear physics, and has an engineering degree, moved to Charlotte, North Carolina to work on a reactor there. I've got several jobs since then. My middle son, Kelly, has 2 degrees from UTA, one in finance and the other is in technology, and he works on the F-35 for Lockheed now. And my youngest son has a degree from North Texas in interior design, and he worked for Burlington Northern for a while, decided he didn't like corporate work, and so he's a pastor now, and he has a degree in counseling. So they're well educated. My own children in the city of Hurst, as I said, they were raised in the north side of Hurst, but they would play in the creek. They'd dam up the creek and play with homemade boats. They rode their bicycles everywhere, and no concern about safety. They even played at night. They'd come home and eat dinner, and then they'd go out at night and they'd play. They were all American boys and did everything there was to do. And we were pleased to be able to raise them in a community that was safe and friendly and with a lot of opportunities. I began playing softball when I first got here. I tell the guys I play with now, man and boy, I've played softball or baseball or softball for 65 years. And they say, well, it looks like you'd be better at it then. As probably an 8-year-old, played Little League, what would be Little League now, and at that point, it was an established team when I walked up. All they didn't have was a catcher. So I said, I'll do that, and so I became a catcher for the baseball team for Little League. And then we moved to high school age. I played first base, and I played American Legion ball. We had a great American Legion team, won several tournaments, and so anyway, I played for them. I have newspaper reviews of our accomplishment, including my own, and so I played American Legion ball outside of high school. When I went to college, I had to work, so I didn't have a chance, and also I probably couldn't have competed. I only weighed about 130 pounds. I could hit for average, but not for distance, and so I played some intramural ball, but in college I didn't play. When I moved here as a teacher, I joined the First Baptist Church, and they had in those days it was fast pitch. I had a fast pitch team, and again, nobody wanted to catch, so I'll be the catcher. So I caught fast pitch softball for probably 25 years. We had an excellent team. We had a pitcher by the name of Jack Richards, could throw it 100 miles an hour. And we played tournaments, and we did pretty well because we had a good pitcher. And the games were in like 1-0. Nobody could hit. We couldn't hit theirs, and they couldn't hit ours. But then we played tournaments around the area, won several church tournament trophies. After that, I played. Then slow pitch came on the scene, and we didn't understand what that was. They said, you lobbed the ball up there. You lobbed the ball. Well, anybody could hit that, But anyway, slow pitch made the scene, and one by one, the fast pitch pitchers died, and so slow pitch took over. And I played for a Bell Helicopter team for a while, and I've played for a number of club teams, and right now I play with in the senior league in the area. We have in this league we have. I think maybe 13 teams around the area. I play with a team called Mid-Cities Flyers, and I play first base. Mobility is limited now. I have a replaced knee, and had a knee replacement, so I don't go left and right very well. So I play first base, and we win tournaments, and we're pretty good. And so it's been a joy to me to have that fellowship and still be able to play at this age and enjoy that experience has come with me, from my youth. There are several iconic events, I thought, since we're doing a oral history, as it were, what I consider, I gave you some thought, what I consider iconic events for the community, for the school district, and for the city of Hurst. One, of course, is the establishment of Bell Helicopter. Bell Helicopter moving here brought their employees, and that's when the growth began. And the second one, I think, was school district consolidation. That began a long period of excellence from the school district. The third event, I think, is the establishment of Airport Freeway. it's hard to conceive of the fact that of Airport Freeway not being here. But when I first came here, this was all pasture land, and Airport Freeway came to pass, and a lot has been accomplished because of that. And since then, retail has exploded. It's moved from south, was on 183, and the only thing left there is First National Bank and the lumberyard. First National Bank is now a pawn shop, I think, and a number of boarded up buildings that are coming back. I think there's a union hall where the old Southhurst School used to be. But anyway, development has moved north and continues to move north now toward Grapevine, Colleyville, and Southlake. Some of the old cotton and wheat farmers up in North Euless and Grapevine were able to sell their properties to an enterprise called Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. And they became overnight millionaires, and we now have, I think, one of the three most used airports in the United States. And so it's been a great change, too, and still population change caused by people seeking work there, and probably even more so in Bell Helicopter now. Northeast Mall, particularly Hearst, was influenced by that because of the input of tax money. Unfortunately, the city fathers had to go through eminent domain to take a few homes away, but for the greater good, they built Northeast Mall, and it has created a great deal of money for Hearst and enabled Hearst on many enterprises, I think, to go with the cash, as it were, from tax money. Those, I think, were the biggies. Now I want to talk about a few iconic people, if I could, some people that made changes in the community. First, I would mention Herman Smith and John Barfield. Herman Smith started as a line worker at Bell Helicopter, and he built a house on the side. Then he built 2 houses. Then he built a lot of houses. And finally, and John Barfield was his partner. Used to be Smith Barfield Homes building. And John Barfield, right along with him, built a house, built 2 houses, and on. John continued to build houses. As far as I know, he's still doing that in places where he can find some dirt to build a house on, you know. But Herman branched off into building shopping centers and malls and public buildings and that kind of thing. And so those 2 gentlemen probably did more for the growth of the infrastructure than anyone. The next one I would mention is Richard Parks, and Richard was the tax assessor collector in those days, and so he kind of brought it all together, and he collected taxes for the county, for the hospital district, eventually for the junior college, and all of I think there are 5 taxing entities now. It was Richard that made all that happen. Joe Humphreys was the superintendent who contributed to the consolidation of the school district. He, along with some forward-thinking school board members, I think, made that happen. And I guess, again, as they say, the rest is history as far as the school district is concerned. Newell Odell was the superintendent who followed him. Newell was the one with the foresight to pick up all of the school sites that one day would be needed to build elementary schools and high schools. And during Newell's tenure here, Trinity High School was to be built. Bell High School, before that, had been built over on Brown Trail, but it was bulging at the seams. When I was teaching there, the enrollment was like 2,600 people, built for maybe 2,000 at best. And so they built they being the school board, and under the direction of Newell Odell, built the campus-based high school on 157 in Euless. Along with Newell Odell, I want to mention Artis Bell and Ralph Butts. Newell and Artis and Ralph were all members of the Rotary Club, which I have belonged to now for 40 years. They sat together, and Newell brought up the subject that we need a junior college out in this area, and so it came to pass. Well, not for their work, Tarrant County Junior College, which I think is housing like 30,000 students at this point, would not be here. And finally, I'd mention Hoot Smith. Hoot Smith was the first athletic director for the school district. We got so high-powered that we had to have an athletic director, and he had been the football coach. But I credit Hoot not only for his influence, but Hoot brought not only football, but physical education to the school district. He realized the significance of beginning physical education at an early age. He brought in facilitated federal programs that gave us some grant money that we can bring instructors for that. The program grew from kindergarten on up. He along with the Milam brothers, Jerry and Emil Milam, brought gymnastics to the school district, and again they sowed the seed that became the statewide concern. UIL now embraces gymnastics, I believe, and he also gave his blessing to soccer. so Hoot was certainly an iconic figure. He was a philosopher, an athletic guru, and just a hail fellow well met. And he started out as a coach after Fred Pennington passed away. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. Fred was the first football coach in the HEB school district, and died a early death, and he got electrocuted in his own swimming pool. An appliance fell into the pool, and he died from electrocution. And so that's who Pennington Field is named after. First, it was an old angle iron structure with wood bleachers, and now it's again an iconic fixture in the community. I have enjoyed a long history of volunteering in the community and work with the nonprofit organizations. I've been on the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce. I was chairman of the library board. I should mention that since there's where we sit. In the early 70s, I guess, the city hall was over on Mary Drive, and they brought in a wood building to sit next to it, headed up on blocks and so on, and that was the library. I don't know how many square feet, but it wasn't very big. And as it grew, the driving force behind the library expansion was a lady by the name of Iris Gwynn. Iris was the library director and facilitated its growth. And I say growth advisedly because it grew at the seams. And at that time, I was chairman of the library board. And so Iris and I went to the city council. As it happened, they were considering doing a bond issue anyway. So we take our slideshow of how crowded the library was. I put my little 4-year-old son, up on my shoulder and showed him reaching for books on the top shelf. And so we appealed to their goodness, I guess, and asked for a new library building along with the other facilities in the bond issue. We asked for 30,000 square feet. They gave us 20,000. Now they've had to expand it to 30, then 50,000. So we were wise before our time. She retired shortly after the building was running, and we recommended the selection of Alan Heindel, who was a librarian in the Houston area. And we were impressed with his advanced, in our opinion, advanced ability for technology. He already had placed where he was the facilities on the computers and so on. So anyway, we recommended Alan's employment to the city, and a great employee, and done a lot to help the city develop. So anyway, that's how this library came into being, through the efforts of Iris Gwynn and the library board, which had a little clout at that time, and some sympathetic council members. I worked for the library board for maybe 10 years or so. We had one incident after the library was established. We decided we need some artwork in Hurst, and so we interviewed a number of artists that would present public art, and some of them were really bizarre looking. One lady's specialty was camel legs, "You heard me right, camel legs." And we said, "What?" So we looked at the maquettes or models that they presented. But anyway, we settled. We had a separate committee for that, including the school district fine arts director, and we settled on one called Icarus, and it was a fiberglass. Bob Hampton called it the boomerang, but it's supposed to symbolize the Icarus, the guy that put the feathers on his wing and tried to fly. So it sat here in the entryway for a number of years until the fiberglass broke down, I guess. Now they're building city art out of bronze, I think. But anyway, that was kind of an episode in the growth of artwork in the city of Hurst. There are a number of other opportunities I had to help with the city of Hurst. I served as the chairman of the 2005 bonds selection committee, which led to the development of and none of my effort, except I was involved with it, to the new retirement center and some plumbing improvement or drainage improvements, a new fire station, that kind of thing. I was involved in that kind of way as well. I was selected as the Hurst Pioneer of the Year several years ago, and that's because I was really old and really still here. And I was president of the the Tri-Cities Softball League way back in the fast pitch days. I chaired the United Way's First Call for Help committee. I was member of the Northeast Tarrant County Arts Council, and we had some great times with that. And we had fundraisers called Texas Toast and Texas Follies, where we would do all kinds of burlesque type presentations, and we had great fun. We'd involve city people and people of some substance in the community that people had never seen in that light, wearing bizarre costumes and so on. And one of the featured acts was myself and some of my colleagues in the lawn chair drill team, where we'd march and march to cadence and clap our lawn chairs together, and that brought a hoot. In fact, we went beyond the Follies and the Texas Toast shows. We went to parades and retirements and even one funeral with our lawn chair drill team. It was a hoot. The Arts Council, I think, has changed its name now just to the Art Council, but it still exists, doing great things. The money we raised went to summer scholarships for students, and still functioning, doing quite well, I think. I was president of the local unit of Tarrant County, of the Tarrant County Red Cross, president of the Cancer Society's local board, American Heart Association board, and commissioner. I was a commissioner of the Boy Scouts of America for a while, and so anyway, all of those nonprofit organizations were good. I currently serve on the Civil Services Commission for the city of Hurst that oversees grievances and that kind of thing for the police and fire department. I was past president of the Rotary Club of Hurst Euless Bedford and a 40-year member. I joined in 1976 under the sponsorship of Richard Parks, who I mentioned earlier, and have been a member since 1976. And this will be my 40th year on the Rotary Board, and they've done great works over the years as well. So by listing all of those, you can tell that I'm a joiner. I was born a Leo, and I guess I still perform in that capacity. From the beginning of time back in the 60s, the school district and the city have been well managed. The ISD is considered, as far as I can remember, one of the premier school districts in the state. People look to Hurst Euless Bedford for a model in many categories. We now have 2 high schools and an alternative high school. Bell and Trinity High School are both international baccalaureate schools, which is significant recognition. And then we have 5 junior highs, and at this point 21 elementary schools, and likely to have to build a few more of those, or at least 1 or 2 because of considerable growth. The teachers and principals and parents actually are due the credit for the recognition that we've given. I have continually been impressed with the support of the community. And a lot of leadership comes out of our district. We've had two national principals, one elementary, one high school, Don Brown High School and Bill Barnes Elementary, national principals of the year. We've had leadership come out of the school district as well. Jerry Longwell is the president of the Music Association of Texas. I had this leadership of the science supervisors of Texas, and several others like that that come from our small staff, our relatively small staff. So they're quality people. The school district has recently, as an example, been recognized by the state as a school district. I don't know the title of the certification, but it was declared the school district with the best bang for the buck. In other words, you get the best quality education for the money that's spent. I have enjoyed a long tenure here, I'm pleased to say. I considered moving on occasion. I thought about a superintendency, and I thought, in fact, I got on the short list of a couple of school districts. It occurred to me that I'd have to uproot my children, and in some cases, because they were small school districts, I would have taken a cut in salary. So I decided it wasn't that big an ego rush to get a superintendency. So we stayed here and have been very happy and glad I did. I spend my time now playing softball. I'm still in the senior softball league. I play softball twice a week. I used to play 3 times a week when I was involved in a night league. I play golf once a week with an old handicapped friend. So we're both handicapped, me by age, him by physical limitations. And I enjoy my grandchildren, 4 boys and 2 girls, and they're all college bound. 2 of them, or 3 of them rather, are in high school still, and the other 3 are in college, in local colleges going through Tarrant County Junior College. I've traveled some. Shortly after I retired, I made the international travel route and went to Scotland and London, Hawaii, Alaska, British Columbia, and so it's kind of my bucket list of travel, I guess. And I never found in my travels, I never found a place that would have been any better, for sure. Certainly better than the limited accommodations I had in Oklahoma. I'd like to be remembered as an interesting person that took advantage of the blessings of life, took the Lord's counsel on the way things work. There were occasions when I prayed for a promotion, or for this thing to happen or that thing to happen, and things always worked out. And so I guess I'd have to say that person who was interesting. In my tombstone, I'd like for him to say, here's maybe not the most interesting man, but an interesting man, and a good friend.